members of the public, and welcome to Area Planning Subcommittee West on the 12th of October. Before we start, I must read the webcast and introduction. I would like to remind everyone present that this hybrid meeting will be broadcast live to the internet or filmed and will be capable of repeated viewing or other such use by third parties. Therefore, by participating in this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and or training purposes. If any public speakers on Zoom do not wish to have their image captured, they should ensure their video setting throughout this meeting is turned off and set to audio only. Please also be aware that if technical difficulties interrupt the meeting that cannot be overcome, I may need to adjourn the meeting. Members are also reminded, and public speakers are reminded, to activate their microphone before speaking and switch them off when they're finished. Thank you. We have one public speaker, and you'll be allowed 3 minutes to state your case from beginning to end. It will be timed. Apologies for absence, please.
Yes, Chairman. We have apologies from Councillors Lee, Councillor Stocker and Councillor Yerrell, and Councillor Pugsley is apologising for lateness as she's caught in traffic.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest, members? I'll take that as a no. Right. Have you had a chance to read the minutes on pages 9 and 10? And may I confirm them as being an accurate record? Thank you. Is there any other business?
No other business, Chairman.
Thank you. The Epping Forest District Council Planning Policy Briefing Note of October 2021 is for noting. Thank you. Site visits, I take it there are none, as it had been agreed we would give prior notice. Thank you. So, agenda item 9 then is the planning application EPF stroke 1024-22 26 Woodbrook Gardens, Waltham Abbey, EN9 3DA on pages 11 to 16 of the agenda. Thank you. And I'm sorry, I haven't introduced him. Sorry, this is a Development Management Service Manager, Andrew Marks, and Jackie Leather. I do apologise. Andrew, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This is item 9, like you said, EPF 1024 of 22, and that is for 26 Woodbrook Gardens in Waltham Abbey. The application is for a side and rear extension, or what we call a wraparound extension, as well as a front extension to the porch, and then a small rear extension at first floor level. There you will see in the blue shaded area the location of the extension. These are the existing rear elevations. The existing side elevation, and this is the front elevation with the gap shown here between this house and an adjoining property over here. These are just the existing ground floor plans and first floor plans, so house of modest size, and we've shown you the roof plan over here for a reason which will become apparent in one of the next slides as well. So this is the ground floor proposal. As you'll see here, this is the porch that is going to be filled in, and basically the wraparound extension seeks to straighten the kink that the house has over here. So this is the existing dwelling here. And so this is the the side extension. It's a fairly long side extension, but I'll explain in a moment the permitted development rights that are also available for building extensions at this property. And then a rear extension that's proposed to be 3.5 meters deep from the rear of the existing building. So this is the first floor plan, and when I get to the next slide, you'll see the roof plan that perhaps makes this slightly clearer. Obviously, this doesn't show the ground floor extension that's proposed in that area there, but it does show the fairly modest first floor rear extension that's about 1.5 meters deep at this location. this is the roof plan, which then shows you the flat roof area over here, which we have put a condition on there that that's not to be used for anything other than maintenance purposes. And this area here is where the first floor rear extension is proposed, and then one roof light in the rear extension as well. So this shows the front elevation. This is the porch area over here, and this is the side extension over there. This is the rear elevation. Now, perhaps just to have a word around permitted development rights. So if you do have permitted development rights to build side extensions, as long as they are no wider than half the width of the original house. So we make this to fall within that category. It also is below 3 meters, so in our opinion, to a large extent, the side extension would be permitted development if constructed in a slightly different way. The rear extension is 3.5 meters deep, and you can build up to 3 meters with under permitted development rights, so slightly in excess of that. And then the first rear extension is not permitted development, although if you do keep away from the side boundaries more than 2 meters, you can actually go up to 4 meters. So slightly above permitted development, but I just wanted to make the point that there is a fallback position here. The materials proposed are render and brick to match the existing building, and the roof materials and tiles as well. So this shows the proposed side elevation. So it does look like quite a long side and rear extension, but like I say, it's what we call a wraparound, so it actually includes the rear and side elements. This is the view from the other side, with the first floor extensions roof over there. Here are some photographs just showing the existing elevation, so you can get an idea of what it looks like. This is an existing garage building. This is the neighbour on the one side, and they've already got a rear extension with a roof light. This is a photograph of the access driveway. So, and you will see that it is a shared. Well, it's not a shared driveway because I suspect both people have got rights of access over this driveway, but clearly it's in use for 2 properties. And this is the current front elevation with the driveway in this position over here. And that is just another photograph of the driveway. So that's the end of the presentation. So if members just will allow me to just take you through the report. So we did have a number of objections, as you can see on page 14 of the report. We had an objection from 25 Woodbrook Gardens, which later in the report we do discuss that some of the matters being objected against, like covenants and party wall matters, are not matters for planning. There is something perhaps that we can mention in terms of hours of construction, which is something we nowadays put as a standard condition in planning permission. So that is something that members might want to consider, and we usually condition that in line with the standard environmental health conditions, that it is 8 to 6 on weekdays and 8 to 1 on Saturdays, and not at all on Sundays and bank holidays, but that's certainly up to members to decide. We then also had some objections from 13 and 14 Woodbrook Gardens about overdevelopment, the property being, or the extensions being out of character, loss of light, overbearing and visual impact, and parking concerns, which is something that I'll explain in a moment, and then also comments on the construction phase. So officers have had a look at this, and I think if we first look at overdevelopment, the extension, like I said, on the side especially does look quite large, but there is a permit to develop fallback position. It does leave a significant front and rear garden area left, and therefore we do not consider it overdevelopment. Also, the materials will match the existing building, so we do not consider it out of character in terms of the materials, and in terms of the size, like I said, overdevelopment is not an issue for us. Loss of light, we had a look, and there is a gap between this property and the next door property, as you saw with the photograph showing the driveway. So we do not consider there to be a problem in terms of loss of light on that side. To the other side, you've seen that there is already a rear extension, so we also do not consider it to be an issue in that regard. Members who know this road will know that it is a cul-de-sac and there are quite a lot of crossovers, so people do tend to park on their front gardens. Obviously, some of the driveway will now be taken up by the extension, but there will be space to park at least one vehicle on the driveway, or if the applicant chooses to park on the front yard area, possibly two. So we also do not consider that to be an issue. And then perhaps just lastly, turning to, because this is specifically mentioned on page 15 of the report, the issues regarding drainage and covenants are not planning matters that we can take into consideration. And we are recommending approval with the conditions as stated on page 16. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. We have one public speaker on this application, and that's Mrs. Faye Thompson-Island. Remind you, you've got 3 minutes, and if you activate your microphone, away you go.
Object on the proposed development for the following reasons. On the application, it states the application will not affect parking, and this is incorrect. The electric charging point for my van, which I use daily for work, would be rendered unusable by the proposed development. Therefore, I can no longer charge my vehicle for work. The loss of EV charging point goes against the Council's Climate Change Action Plan 2021, which encourages the use of electric and hybrid vehicles like my van. Previous planning decisions have required at least a 1 metre gap from the boundary, and from the covenants contained in the land registry, the drive is a shared drive, and as such no one can build up to the property boundary. Additionally, entering and exiting the vehicle would be impossible with the development to the boundary. Therefore, we would lose much of the use of our drive. If there is any damage to the drive, I would expect that to be paid by the owner. And when the foundations are dug, it would be imperative that no holes were left, as I have a 5-year-old who I wouldn't want to fall in. And provision must be made to allow access for the carers and the residents of Woodbrook Gardens who require carers to come 4 times a day, as this was interrupted during a previous development in the cul-de-sac. And similarly, provision must be made for bin collections, as these were also interrupted. And a request that work does not commence earlier than 8:30 and finish by 5:30 during the week to allow time to get children to sleep and to and from school. And additionally, I would ask that no waste is brought across our shared driveway onto my side without written permission. That's
Thank you very much indeed. Members, the officer's recommendation is to grant permission with conditions. Councillor Kane.
Thank you, Chairman. This property and application is actually in my ward. I know the road quite well, and I believe, I don't know if it's the good lady's property, but certainly the adjacent property with the shared drive, I believe there's a garage at the back of that property as well. And I'm just wondering, is there a loss of amenity in as much as you wouldn't be able to get a vehicle down the shared driveway if this extension was built? I'm not sure how much gap is left on the other side, as it were. I wonder if we can get any clarity on that.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, the drawings that were submitted to us do not actually show what will be left on the neighbour's side. If you give me a moment, I can try and scale it off a drawing I have here, but the scale is very, very small, so I'm not sure how accurate it would be.
Certainly from my recollection, I think you'd probably need the whole of that drive to be able to access the back with a vehicle. I'm also concerned to hear about the loss of the EV point, which I'm assuming is down the side of the building on the shared drive or at the back of the building, requiring access to the back of the building to be able to charge that vehicle. So again, it's a loss of amenity thing to me that concerns me at the moment.
Councillor Sarti.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm assuming the fact that this is being quoted as being a shared driveway is a matter that sits outside of us giving any planning permission or refusing planning permission?
The matter of any restrictive covenants is not something that members or we can't take into consideration under planning. However, what I would say is clearly if members feel that it might stop somebody from accessing an amenity area, that's I think a different matter. If it, so loss of an amenity or access to an area is not the same as trying to enforce a covenant, I would say.
Councillor Ovey.
Thank you, Chairman. On the face of it, when I read this application, it looked reasonably straightforward, and I wondered why it was before us. But now I can see there are issues with it, and the shared driveway does worry me, and the loss of amenity and charging point. I feel uncomfortable agreeing with giving permission to something which will place another party in a problem, and therefore I'm going to think about whether I refuse this or reject it.
Yeah, Councillor Kane.
Thank you for letting me come back, Chairman. I just wonder, with your permission, perhaps our speaker could clarify the location of the EV charging point, which might help us in our considerations.
Could you do that, please? Could you point out where it is? Have we got a photograph
Are
again?
you able to bring up the one with my van? Because it is right up the top of the drive. So if you can see the top of the drive, if you can imagine essentially looking straight through the brown, reddy brown fence, it's straight through there. To the left of the drainage pipe, so closer to the top of the house. Yeah, and yeah, but it's right up that end, and no wire goes that far.
Thank you. And I take it you can't drive past that fence. That fence is in the way of the width, and that's where the boundary is. Thank you. Councillor Matthews.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, this is a really difficult one, and we don't want to be, as Councillor Avery said, causing other residents problems. However, I think the fact of the matter is it's a narrow drive, and obviously it's relative to what size vehicle goes down there. It's clear from that picture, and sorry, it's just gone off now, but it was clear from that picture that the van couldn't proceed any further anyway. It could only get to that point. So I'm not sure there's an argument to say that it can't. If they did build up to that point, then it would obstruct the van or any other vehicle from going all the way down the driveway, because obviously it can't fit down there at the moment. It looks as if unfortunately the driveway is just too narrow for sort of larger, more modern vehicles. Obviously we've seen this in other areas where the original designs and layout of these buildings were suitable for their time, and as things have moved on and we've got larger vehicles and what forth, then it's these things aren't really working out practically. But we can't turn around and restrict someone's application on their property if it hasn't infringed any planning issues. So I'm minded at the moment, unless I hear anything convincing otherwise, to support our officers' decision on this. Thank you.
I must admit myself, I'm like Councillor Avey, took this as being quite straightforward, but now it has become slightly more complicated. Should this be granted, that wall of the extension will come right out to that fence. So we're actually denying any parking by the neighbour, let alone getting to the EV point. Am I right?
That seems to be the situation. If you just allow me to call the photograph up again. I mean, photographs can be deceiving. So if members are not sure, it's something we can ask to be looked at again. But if you look at this photograph, it's difficult to say. I mean, you might be able to get a vehicle in there, but you might not be able to get out of the door. So
Thank you.
yeah, this is perhaps one that's can show you if that's assumed to be the boundary, which I'm not sure it is necessarily, but yeah, if you take that through, then you might be able, if you take the mirrors down, to get a vehicle in there.
And it is proposed to build right up to that line.
Yes.
So even if you could get the vehicle up there, you couldn't get the door open anyway.
I wouldn't have thought so, no.
Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just go back to what the officer explained at the beginning of the presentation with regards to the permitted development? So there is a potential that this could be built up to the boundary line under permitted development. So that's where I'm a little bit on the fence at the moment, because my good side to me is completely understanding all of the bad situations that the neighbour's going to be put in, but the practicality of it is that it's likely that it could be done under permitted development as well. There is also a property that looks directly opposite that has done a similar extension. So at the moment, more leaning towards going with the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
I took it that, or understood it, under permitted development it would have to come in half a metre.
No, that's not the case. You can go right up to the boundary. And in fact, just to clarify, if, for instance, the first floor rear extension element is removed and the rear extension is reduced by half a metre, then in my opinion, it looks to me like the remaining development may well be well within permitted development rights.
Thank you. Any further members? Councillor Leppert.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's any provision to put a charging meter somewhere else, maybe out in the street rather than behind it. Has that been considered? Or does the existing one has to go and that's it?
But this is actually the neighbour's charging point.
Yeah.
Rather than, yeah, so I mean, they would have to move it to make it usable. Yeah.
I was wondering how insurmountable
But
the charging point problem is.
That's not our consideration on this. Right, members, the officer's recommendation is to grant planning permission with conditions and the additional condition of the hours of work. Those in favour of approval?
Four, Chairman.
Those against?
3, Chairman.
Abstentions?
2, Chairman.
And that's fine, yep. That's in favour.
Yeah.
So that application has been
Granted.
granted. Thank you. Right, so, sorry, you are free to leave if you wish. Thank you. Agenda item 10 then is the planning application EPF/1205/22, Garden House, Laundry Lane, Nazing, Waltham Abbey, EN9 to DY on pages 17 to 24. Andrew, please.
Thank you, Chairman. As you say, item 9, and this is for planning application for a coach house at a property called Garden House in Laundry Lane in Nazing. This is the location plan. It's the plan is green because it's all in the green belt. So there's quite a bit of planning history, which I'll explain in a moment. So originally there was just one house on this larger property here with a number of outbuildings. Planning permission was granted some years ago for outline planning permission, which included demolition of some of these outbuildings to allow for the building of this new house. The current application is then for a coach house to be erected in this area here, and I do apologise when I checked my the officer's presentation earlier. The drawings aren't great, so I've got another one ready to go if you want to have a look at the plans in more detail. So let's see how they render over here. So this is the existing house. This is an existing hedge, and this is the coach house proposed over here. The proposal is for slate roof and for timber sidewalls. This is it in plan form. I should say that this property has also got permitted development rights for outbuildings and extensions. This building, however, is not permitted development because it's closer to the boundary than 2 meters, and it's over 2.5 meters in height, and it's also forward from this elevation. So it does in fact need planning permission, although if built somewhere else and further away from a boundary, it might well be that there's some permitted development rights available. I'm showing you these photographs because the works actually commenced. I believe at the time that the application was submitted, the works had not commenced, and certainly that was the indication that the applicant had given on the application form. So just while I show that to you, perhaps just walk you through the report. So like I say, there's already, there is permitted development rights on the site. This application actually creates the opportunity for us to remove some of that permitted development rights to the main house, which the applicant has already agreed in exchange for this building here. Clearly, the development has already commenced, which is why members will note that the conditions does not include the usual you will commence within 3 years. What it does include, though, is condition 3 that removes class A, B, and E, which is basically extensions to the roof, extensions to the building itself, and all further outbuildings, which will allow us to control that. So in terms of openness to the greenbelt, we do accept that this building is inappropriate development, but the fact that we are able to remove permitted development rights from the rest of the building and also any further Class E outbuildings is considered to be very special circumstances, and we are therefore recommending permission is granted subject to conditions. We did have some objections, the main objections being the impact on the greenbelt, which I've just spoken about, but also regarding the fact that there is concern that it may be turned into an annex, and as members will see that we do have a condition 4 that we propose, which is to ensure that the building is kept only available for parking vehicles and for storage. So in conclusion, we're recommending planning permission is granted subject to the conditions as stated on page 22 of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. The officer's recommendation is to approve with conditions. Members? Councillor Kane.
Thank you. Quick question for clarity. Is there any planning reason this is termed a coach house and not just a garage?
Sorry, I didn't quite get the last bit of the question.
I'm asking, why is it a coach house and not a garage block?
I think the coach house traditionally is timber and open, so this hasn't got any garage doors. But it does show 2 vehicles parked inside, and there's a storage space as well.
Councillor Sartin.
Thank you, Chairman. What we're really looking at here is a retrospective planning application, although that word is not referred to within the paperwork. Because I was in the area this afternoon, I actually drove down and had a look at the site. The building that is already up, the outline, the main posts, etc., are already up, but it is hidden by hedging. It's not immediately visible from the road. I was uncertain where the 2 properties were that had actually put in objections. I assume that they're within the original, what was the original farmyard area across the other side of Laundry Lane, which is a bit of distance away. But I couldn't really see any good reason for refusal on this one, apart from the fact it's retrospective. Of course, that's irrelevant.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Sarton. I did ask the officer about it today, and clearly, like I said, unfortunately, the building works did commence after they submitted the application to us, so we didn't mess around with the description. But certainly, if members want to add the word retention, then that's not a problem for us. I would also say that and thank you for bringing that to my attention, because we also probably then, Chairman, need to look at condition 2, because condition 2 actually says prior to any above ground works taking place, we want documentary evidence of the materials, and clearly the works have already commenced. So if members and Chairman is happy to delegate that to us, we'll come up with a suitable wording, but usually it's something to the extent of before work to the relevant part of the building commences, you will clear this with us. So hopefully that's in order with members.
Councillor Kane.
Yes, the site is located within the metropolitan green belt. So can you please tell me what is the exceptional circumstances? Because I'm not clear on that.
What we are able to do through the mechanism of this planning application is to remove the permitted development rights for the main house and any further Class E, so any further outbuildings on this property.
Councillor Samko.
Yeah, I just heard what the officer said. Where does it actually say that? Is that part of the conditions, or?
Yes, condition 3 removes all the permitted development rights that are currently enjoyed by the property. So Class A, which is for side and rear extensions, and Class B, which is for roof extensions, and Class E, which is outbuildings.
Right, members, the officer's recommendation is to approve the conditions, and are we happy to delegate the wording of condition 2 to the officers to... Thank you. So, those in favour of approving?
Nine, Chairman.
Those against?
None, Chairman.
Abstentions?
One, Chairman.
Thank you. Exclusion of public and press, do we need to do that? That being the case then, I'm sure you all wish to wish me happy birthday. I close this meeting at 32 minutes past 7. Thank you.